Hey guys, Squatch Talk, episode 7. We are the Primate Objective. I'm Pat.
And I'm Ernie. And thanks for listening. We've got a pretty special guest tonight, a guy that a lot of folks in the Bigfoot world are probably familiar with, and who Pat and I got to know a few years back a little bit. So we'll be talking about that in just a second. We're real happy to have him on. Justin Smeja is our guest tonight. And thanks for coming on Squatch Talk, Justin.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. How you doing? How's life treating you these days, man?
Man, it's good. It's good. Life in California is booming. The sun just came out. Everybody's working. I work construction, and we're busier than we've ever been. Which means things are good. The bills are getting paid.
Oh yeah, man. Having solid work is important. I know all about it, brother.
Yeah, how's the hunting been out there?
So we went through a 5-year drought that started exactly the time of my accident in 2010. Since 2000, experienced the worst drought that it's ever experienced, pretty much on record. 5 years with very little rain. Then this last year we got a little bit of rain, and for California, it's supposed to be a green, lush, beautiful place, and it became a tinderbox really quick. We had all kinds of fires, and it was devastating to a lot of wildlife. Everything from the salmon that are trying to come up the river, that quit coming up the river, to the deer and the bear that migrate. They quit doing all that because there was just no water. It confused all the other animals. But the rain has finally come back this past year, and so now we're dealing with flooding because there's so much water, more water than there's ever been.
Wow.
Which is funny how that goes. You go from the driest point to the wettest point real quick. So right now it's just a natural recovery. The land's getting flushed out. Everything's starting new. And the hunting's, I would say, not as good as it's been in general. But things are going to improve, and there's just life goes in cycles. And right now it's a new beginning for everything. Everything got washed clean, and things are going to start looking up real quick.
Gotcha. Well, I'm trying to remember how many years back it's been since we first reached out to you. Briefly for the listeners, and then I'll throw to you, Pat, and you can discuss how we came to contact him. I first became aware of your and your buddy, the driver's story. This is, again, for our listeners, this is the story of two people, not just one person. And I became aware of that story first in your audio interviews, internet radio interviews. I think the first one was with the one with Abe Del Rio, Steve Coles, and J.C. Johnson.
Yeah, 2011.
January 1st, 2012 is the date given on the YouTube video.
Okay, yeah.
And at the end of that interview, your buddy, the driver, he phones in on the line, and he is part of the interview, the discussion as well. So I was very compelled by that. I must have listened to it, I don't know how many times. And then in November of that same year, 2012, was what I believe the second full-length interview with you, an audio internet interview. It was called the 25th Hour Radio Show. And I listened to that backwards and forwards. And then, of course, your interview with Rosa Hebe and the subsequent documentary with you and the drivers, videotaped interviews. Pat and I both were very compelled by that story. And we had seen the rendering of the adult Sasquatch that you guys described. And I'll throw to you, Pat. Why don't you kind of take it from there, the idea that you had?
Yeah, well, we were talking one day on the phone, and you said, man, there's this dude out in California that shot one. And I was like, well, where is it?
Right.
That was my first reaction, of course. I was like, well, where is it?
Yeah.
You know? And so anyway, so he turned me on to those interviews, and I learned the story as well. I was very compelled by it. And I guess a little bit of time went on, and I said, I called up Ernie one day. I was like, hey, man, you're a professional artist, and I haven't seen any art come out of this encounter. Why don't we contact Justin and tell him that, hey, we'll do a really good rendering of the juvenile. And so that's how the ball got rolling. We reached out to you, and here we are.
Yeah. And I think we worked on those drawings for maybe 9 months or maybe closer to a year, just in different stages. We'd have a discussion with you, and I'd ask, as many questions about referencing the interviews that I had heard already. And then, of course, asking you specific details about the juveniles. And we just kind of worked in various stages of revisions until we kind of got to what you said that you felt was that resembled pretty closely what you and your buddy saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like you guys did a great job with that. I mean, it's so hard to describe what you think once upon a crazy time during a really intense thing that was happening. But I felt like you guys were and just put it down on paper and say, you know what, it looked kind of like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it was such a fascinating tale, and the descriptions that you guys gave, and the different the odd body proportions. There haven't been in the pantheon of Bigfoot reports. Juveniles are certainly mentioned a percentage of the time, but not in that quite that detail. And again, we talked a little before the show. I guess we should back up just real quickly before going any further and just kind of give the broad context for the handful of folks that maybe aren't familiar with your story. It was again the story of two men, you and your buddy, 2010, October of 2010, hunting. You see what in hindsight is now we consider to be an adult Sasquatch. A shot was taken. It went down. It boogied toward the tree line. Two smaller ones come out of the tree line in pursuit of it. You guys looked around. You were in the midst of these juveniles as they continued also to search for the adult, which was never found. And eventually, a shot was taken at the younger one. And I guess we're kind of at the point where I just kind of want to set the record straight. I mean, that is in a nutshell the story. And many people, I encourage anyone to listen to it in full from these guys' mouths. Otherwise,
that's completely accurate the way you described it. Yeah.
Yeah, because exactly. that way you'll never understand the context of what Pat and I feel is a absolutely honest, true account from two people that corroborate each other's stories. And we got to talk to you pretty extensively, about all of this in the process of doing the drawings. And again, Pat and I are maintained and continued to feel that you guys were telling a very compelling, true story. And in the years since, we've heard what we think are otherwise well-intentioned Bigfooters just get it wrong, who apparently just rejected the story out of hand in the beginning because it sounded outrageous to them. And maybe they didn't listen in full to you and your buddy's interviews. Maybe they didn't understand certain things. But the first thing I'd like to set the record straight about is neither you nor your buddy, you didn't have any prior belief in Bigfoot, and neither of you had any knowledge of this ravenous Bigfoot craze community at the time.
Yeah, no, I wasn't into it at all. Neither was he. We also weren't. It doesn't sound that long ago, but it was 7 years ago. Nobody was out there trying to get rich on the internet, trying to make a film and trying to get a bunch of followers and do whatever, GoFundMe. None of that was happening, at least as far as I was aware of them. Maybe I was
You're right. You're right.
But I was just me and my buddy. We worked at Home Depot at the time. We were doing retail. We worked construction, and we worked in the evening at home. We worked 2 jobs. The economy was kind of bad at the time. And we would just get used to going hunting every single weekend that we could. If it was going to happen to somebody, it happened to me. Eventually, we had this encounter where, it was brief. It was, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes long, from start to finish. There's no doubt about what happened. We're not mistaken. We didn't both sit there and have a mirage. We didn't see bears didn't turn into monkeys or whatever. The story didn't change. No,
Mm-hmm.
We saw these things. They were monkey-type creatures. They were as people describe Bigfoot. And they're right in front of us. If I would have acted differently, I could have gotten absolute proof. But at the time, it was just absolute chaos. It seemed like a nightmare that you just wanted to wake up from. So in a lot of senses, I blew it on every aspect. You know, I mean, I shot a big one. Big one got away. I shot a little one. Little one was dead right there. And we're just like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Let's come back later. Let's pick it up when we're thinking clearly and clear-minded. Like, that was almost like the thinking that went through this. Then, you know, because there's, with every property in the woods, more or less, there's one way in, one way out. And we didn't see the game warden that day. And people, a lot of people get the story confused because they're like, well, why didn't you come back later that night? I'm like, well, you got to understand how it happened. So this happens right in the, you know, sunset or maybe 4:30 in the afternoon at the time. And it started snowing that night. We left. We decided that we were going to come back later that night after we thought the game warden had gone because we had just seen the game warden, mind you. I didn't know what was happening. If I could replay it, I'd just drive up to the game warden and throw it in front of him and be like, hey, look at this dead Bigfoot. Look at this little monkey thing. And see what he said to it. But at the time, it just seemed like pure chaos. They just seemed so human. I don't know. It didn't seem like something that it seemed like the kind of thing you'd get in trouble for.
Right.
It really, really did. So we're like, all right, let's come back later.
Yeah.
It snowed a foot that night in Lake Tahoe, which is the basis of where this area was, Northern California, close to Nevada. And then the next day, we tried to come back, and then it snowed another 2 feet over the course of 3 days. This is immediately after it happened. We got this dead Bigfoot, this dead monkey thing. We bury it good, put rocks, all kinds around it. And our intention was just to come back 2 or 3 hours later and pick it up. But we couldn't get back up there. This area, it's about 7,500 feet in elevation. When it snows, it'll snow 4 feet in a weekend, and the snow will stay there. Right now, there's probably 15 feet of snow right there today, currently.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Snow up there. It's an unbelievable place. And right next to where Nevada meets California, right about the middle. I made all the wrong decisions, but that doesn't change that one day I discovered that, hey, these things are real.
Well,
so
that kind of brings me to the point of what so many Bigfooters have gotten wrong in the years since, is that they did not bother to put themselves in the mindset of someone in your situation who did not already have prior knowledge of all of this. And if you
a lot of people, like, I was already into this or had some knowledge or I was trying to go out and prove this. I was like, no, I mean, it's like, if you think Bigfoot's real or you've given a thought, you were already ahead of me. I just didn't think about stuff like that. I wasn't in that world.
I got you. And I guess moving on to point 2 of setting the record straight about a few things that have gotten wrong, neither of you sought publicity afterward. It was actually, in a way, you could say almost inadvertently leaked, you know, the way the information you wound up exchanging or sort of making a comment on a taxidermy website that you were a part of. It was just another one of your
right
interests.
After this happened, I was more or less just down to keep it quiet. We were still trying to go back up and get there. They're like, so this happened. It snows 4 feet in Tahoe that night. We can't get back up there. It's not going to happen. And so their assumption was, all right, well, we're going to snowmobiles. We'll try to do this, try to do that. We keep trying to get back up there. But the long story short is the 5 weeks passed before we got back up there. I mean, unless you were going to rent a helicopter or do some shit like that, it wasn't going to happen. And that wasn't in my budget to do that, to go try to find this thing.
Right.
So after this happened, I had about 5 weeks to sit there and be like, well, what the heck now? What's next? And so I sat there and I read everything I could read about Bigfoot and tried to somehow come to peace or try to make sense out of it. And at the time I had a hobby of being a taxidermist, and I was on this just a random internet forum where guys talk about taxidermy business. And a lot of those guys grew up hunting or fishing. And so I set a filler out there. I just posted a post in like the general forum campfire section, they call it. I was like, hey, you guys ever heard about anybody seeing a Bigfoot, or if you saw one, would you shoot it, kind of thing? And one of the guys immediately emailed me. He's like, I can tell by the way you asked that you encountered one of these things, didn't you? And I wrote him back. I said, well, what makes you say that? He's like, because I encountered one. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So then I said, well, here's my phone number. Call me. And next thing I knew, everybody in the world was, it seemed like, was talking about it for a brief, short amount of time. Everybody was talking about the guy that says he shot a Bigfoot or two. Mm-hmm. There was never any trying to get famous on it. I could have done a better job if I tried, but we were just trying to. We kind of thought that we were going to get the body and cash in on, like,
right.
I mean, we were talking to these Bigfooters, and we're like, no, we got it sealed because eventually we're going to find that skull. We're going to sell it for like $2 million. It's easy.
Yeah,
because this all really happened.
Yep.
You know, that was like our mindset for almost like a year. Then certainly after it happened. In fact, there was one point to where I was talking to a friend of mine, Derek Randalls, and he's like, yeah, cool, we're going to get in there. You know, we're a couple weeks had passed, and we hadn't got back up there. And I was like, all right, so here's the deal. I'm going to bring you the body. I'm going to bring you the body. I know exactly where it was. We buried this freaking thing. I'm going to bring it to you on Tuesday morning. We're going to meet up in Portland. I mean, we got real specific about it because I had every intention of bringing this thing in because it should have been there. Like, this was a real thing, and we set it up, and I was like, okay, cool. And then, you know, you're going to give it to your buddy. It's going to figure out, say that it's real, and then somebody's going to write me a check and some money. I was like, cool. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when we never found it, you know, nothing ever became of it. But we found, so, yeah, it gets long, drawn out, and complicated. But the short of it is we never really found anything. We thought we might have, or we weren't sure. We found that we brought up a bunch of hounds, and the hounds are running around. They brought back a piece of hide, which really didn't look like it was from this animal. But, you know, the assumption is, like, what's the odds of an animal finding a piece of fur next to, like, where this happened at? We'll go with it.
Yeah.
And they got that tested. One lab came back and they said, wow, this is from a Sasquatch. Or this is from an unknown primate. That's what they said. And they said, this seems like a significant find. We sent it to another lab. They said more or less the same thing. They said, wow, this is a big deal, guys. What's going on here? Tell me the story. Start from the beginning, you know, sort of thing. We had their full attention. Lots of doctors and lab techs and all that. They looked into it. Then in the end, they said, you know what? We got it wrong. It was just a piece of bear fur. It was just a piece of bear. I said, oh, okay. You got it wrong? Yeah, my bad. I'm like, you guys have had this for like a year, and we've been talking about it for a year, and you just found out it's a piece of bear? What happened to all those other emails where you're like, hey, there's something special? I don't know what to tell you. Well, like, okay, so between me and you guys, I have no idea what it is. It could have been a piece of bear, I guess. I mean, it should be because that's what they said it is. But, you know, all in all, you know, years passed. I mean, 4 or 5 years passed, and some of these labs are still sitting there with this piece of flesh, testing it, talking about it, looking at it, and telling us different things like, hey, this looks like it's still something special, and this looks like it could be from some sort of animal that we don't know exists that could be a primate. And then nothing ever became of it. They all, one by one, except a couple of them, like 2 of them were like, yeah, no, it's from a Bigfoot. And then about 7 of them, they would start out real positive. They would say, wow, this seems really interesting. This doesn't seem like just a piece of animal fur. Then over the course of several months of tests and things, and they'd come back and they'd say, you know what, I guess it's just from a piece of bear. I don't know what to make of that. Wow. It sounds awfully fishy and it sounds awfully odd.
It is.
I have all that. I'm not saying that there's a government conspiracy, but I'm not saying that there's not, because I'm just telling you what I experienced verbatim. Me and about 25 other people, because people would get involved, like this guy Tyler and this other people. They would say, hey, we'll pay to have the DNA tested and we'll run all that. We just want to, you know, I want you to use this lab, this reputable lab from Canada. I'm like, cool, let's send a piece there. So we'd send a piece there. We'd send a piece to another lab before all said and done. I'd send all these pieces of this little tiny piece of flesh or hair or whatever that, you know, this dog had found. And it seemed like they all started with high interest. And it wasn't like they were just getting paid or whatever. They weren't like, hey, send us some money. One of the labs, they had a bill of like $4,000 with all this work that we had done. And they said, you know what, don't worry about it. This must have been our mistake because we were so sure that we had something special. no charge or whatever. It didn't seem like anybody was out for money. It kind of seemed like I watched a government conspiracy right in front of my eyes where they tried to cover it up.
Pat,
But maybe not. Maybe not.
You know,
I don't know. I can't. I was there, and I really can't tell you what happened.
Yeah, I mean that's tough, man. With the DNA stuff, it's just like because that's so out of your hands, and it's a specialty thing that happens. It's how could you ever really know? You know.
Well,
Yeah.
and I want to interject. This all brings me to kind of the third point was that regardless of how things panned out or didn't pan out with the flesh sample, I think that the main thing I heard so many Bigfooters get wrong after the fact was that neither you nor your buddy ever claimed that you knew for sure that that sample was from the creature you shot. And so many people misquoted you, they mischaracterized the entire claim and how that came to be, and it's been irksome to hear because it spins people off in the wrong direction immediately.
Yeah, I was on a TV show with the BBC or Channel 4 or something, some British news anchor named Mark something or another. And they asked me a lot of questions, and, I'd give my answer. And then when I watched that show air, then they asked me a question. I'm sitting there answering it, but it wasn't actually even the question they asked me. It was like an editing thing where they were trying to make their story different. And so it wasn't like it was almost like they tricked me into saying something, but they asked one question and then answered another question. And one of the things the guy says to me, Mark, this guy, he's like, hey, you told me that this was from the animal that you shot, the juvenile, and you took it off the body, blah, 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 blah. Then he says this. Well, when they recorded, they never said that was a voiceover. He never said anything like that.
Right.
And it was recorded. You could literally watch it on their thing, and you can tell that it was recorded in like Britain or wherever. It's recorded in some park with all these trees behind him that you could tell isn't from California.
Oh wow.
So there was stuff like that happened. So were those people out to get me or make a liar out of me? No. But they needed to make their story, and they needed to make it shorter and sweeter and easier.
TV.
So they needed to cut to the chase.
Yeah.
So they decided to use a voiceover just to make their story a little bit more easier to understand and quicker, instead of telling like the whole long truth.
Pat,
which I
but that's still that's still that.
Well, in the end, he just butchered the whole story, because you say one thing that's off, that's significantly off. Like you said, you took this from the body, and then it turned out to be this in a DNA lab. That's a big difference in saying, hey, I thought this was probably from this based on the circumstances. Here are the circumstances. They're complicated. There's several people there. There was these dogs out there. They were going to find something. The dogs were going to bring back something. They happened to bring back something, and I thought it was probably from what I shot. But we didn't shoot a bear. It didn't look like a bear. Even the flesh sample doesn't look like a bear when you look at it. I shot lots of bears. At the time, I had shot about 10 bears. I spent half my life out in the woods hunting and fishing. And these were like bears in the sense, but they just weren't. They were monkeys. They were primates. They were smart. They were intelligent. They were just clearly not bears. Anybody knows what a bear looks like. These were like monkeys.
Yeah, of course.
And to call that guy out, I think his name is Mark Evans. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah,
I think
nice enough guy and all that, but I mean, to me, it was a black and white lie. There was no getting around it. I didn't say that. I didn't respond to that question. And then when you say that I did, and you paint that with the rest of the story, it makes my story a black and white lie when that's not what happened.
That's right.
Not.
Yeah, no, that's sneaky. That's sneaky, dude. That I would say that's unethical. As you know, if this guy.
Oh, it is, because I didn't even say that to him. Like he had, like they used voiceovers and different things that just you can even watch the interview and tell that it's recorded in a different place. But you're not sitting there trying to catch them in a lie, so it just like it flows with the program. I get that. They weren't out to get me. They were just out to make a quick, cute little story and wrap it up. And they weren't out to present an accurate truth of a factual thing that actually happened.
Welcome to the media.
Yeah.
In doing they mischaracterized the entire claim, the entire order of events as told by you and your buddy by doing that. And again, it's something that a lot of otherwise well-intentioned Bigfooters saw from afar and just wrote off, rejected out of hand without really looking into it. And again, that's everything that you've said. Every single word you said tonight kind of falls in with my last point of setting the record straight, and that is that neither you or your buddy have ever changed your story.
Well,
I've heard that.
That's the
Change your
most
story.
interesting thing because a lot of times passed. I mean, 7 years. I got a daughter who's 6 years old. She was born right after this happened. I mean, my life is a lot different now than it was then. It would be really easy if I'm just not in this for anything. Like, if I was in this for the money, then I'm doing it all wrong because I'm like hiding from everybody pretty much. I don't do interviews. I don't talk about this just because I've answered all the questions. I've gone almost everywhere there is to go with this. There's probably literally like 50 podcasts over the course of 2 or 3 years where I talk about everything there is to talk about. And some people have told me, hey, we listened to every single one of those and you're consistent through everyone. That's great. Yeah, I know, because I'm talking about something that really happened. I'm way past that. I'm not trying to show somebody that's happened. Like, I did for a little bit, and then, I'd go out and do the Bigfooting thing. And I right now, all I really do is research in private. Nobody ever hears about it. And it's like, it can get a little vulgar, I guess. But the idea is that I'm going to kill another one. Or that I'm just going to prove that they're real or take a picture. I don't care how it happens. I just want absolute definitive proof. I really don't care. If I have to kill one, it has to be violent or whatever. That's unfortunate. I don't want that. I would much rather just get a picture of one. I'm not being unethical or more ethical about it. I don't feel, at least. It's just, it's not an emotional thing for me. It's just, I want to kill. We're just talking about one. Perhaps there's 100 or 5,000 of them. We don't, whatever. I've heard the statistic that was pretty interesting to me. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Is that there's 400 in the Pacific Northwest between California and Canada. That's what they biologists say there would have to be a breeding population. Well, if there's 400 between California and Canada, we ain't never going to find it. Because there's like 45,000 mountain lions in between there and there, and no one's ever even seen one of them. There's like 70,000 bears between there.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Most people haven't seen a bear in California, Oregon, or Washington, but there's a shit ton of bears. And so it's one of those things where I got nothing to gain by sticking to my story. It would be easier to say, nah, just kidding. Or, I mean, it'd be a really long-winded joke. Is what it would be.
There'd be less.
Very long-winded joke.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I didn't get anything from this. So my buddy, this happened to me and my buddy. We were younger. At the time, I was 24 years old. He was about the same age, and we're working our ass off trying to just get by. The economy wasn't real good at the time. It's a lot better now, but he wanted to get away from the whole thing. So he moved his family across the country, moved to the Midwest, just to try to create some distance between him and just the whole situation. I mean, he's like, yeah, this happened, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to live in this.
Wow.
6 months or so, we talk about this, me and him. And I'd be like, hey, so you ever think about like writing a book or telling your story or doing an interview? He said, well, nothing good happened to you from this. Well, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. He watched you get out there. Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's any conspiracy out there. I lay out the facts and I kind of allude to it in a sense. But a lot of bad stuff happened to me after this happened. I mean, a lot of bad stuff. My house was broken into. I was robbed. They took everything that there was to take as far as anything of value, but they also took everything out of the freezer, all the deer meat, which is kind of a weird thing. But at the time, there was a lot of rumors going around that I had a babysitter. I never implied this, and I went every way to correct it. But a lot of people believe that I had a dead juvenile Bigfoot in my freezer at the time.
Right.
It was just a rumor that somehow didn't quiet it down. I was like, no, that's not true. I have a little piece of something. I don't even think it's from the juvenile. I mean, it might be from the bigger one. Anyways, a lot. I mean, a lot. My house got burned down 100% a year later. Just burned to a crisp.
What?
I lost everything. And some people said that, hey, maybe the fire department said it was arson. They said, hey, somebody took a cigarette or whatever out to the field behind your house, and somebody did this, and you're the only house around here. That was something that happened. I'm not saying that happened. The fires happen all the time, but there was a lot of things that happened like that.
I remember that time. I do. I remember hearing.
Fish and Game came to my house, and they knocked on my door, and they wanted to talk to me. And they said, hey, we're just here to talk about a poaching incident. It's like, poaching incident? I never poached anything in my life. And then, well, you know what we're here for. We need to come in and look around and talk to you. I'm like, look around. What do you got to look at? And like, we've heard that you have a Bigfoot in your freezer, and we need to come in and look around. Or maybe, oh, no, they said, we need to talk to you about this incident that happened in 2010. This is 2012, I think, what happened, or 13. They said, we need to talk to you about the juvenile Bigfoot that you shot. I was like, oh, the Fish and Game, like these were officers. These were like federal agents, or I think they are maybe state. I guess they're state. But yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that at any given point it would have been a good time to be like, you know what, just kidding. But
it would have. You probably should have said that. Yeah.
At some point, but this is really just something that happened to me, and there's no reason for me to make it up or change it or whatever. My buddy, he'll still talk about it with certain people every once in a while, and it's like, these things are real. They're out there. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I probably know less about this than I did when it happened, because over time your mind starts to warp and you start to like try to second guess things. You start to think of theories. You start to grasp and try to find reality in this. I mean, I have gone every which direction that you can go with this, trying to think that they're demons or aliens or monkeys, or a government conspiracy or a government experiment. And I'm not into any of that stuff. But when you got nothing left to go on, then you'll grasp at things. And that's what I've done for a long time. So I feel like I know less about Bigfoot phenomenon now than I did then, because I've had way too much time to think about it and hypothesize about what this could be. But we've also had other stuff. You guys kind of know this because I'll talk to you about it here and there, but I don't talk about it publicly. But we've had other stuff happen since then. It's not like I went out, whatever, nothing happened of it, went on a couple TV shows, I got the story wrong, and then time passed. No, I've been out there every single year hitting it freaking hard. I do it like I do hunting, and I start going in July when the activity seems to speak up. Then I go to like August, September. Then right about October, we usually get snow, and then we're done for the year. And we have stuff that happens. So I just go every other weekend. It's like a camping trip. You go up to the mountains, hopefully for 4 days. And you can walk around a lot. You look for tracks. You make noises. You bang on sticks. And you record stuff. You hope that something happens. But over the course, 99% of the time, nothing happens at all. But we've had significant stuff happen over this course of like literally 150 return trips to the kill site, as they call it, the kill site. About 150 return trips, actually easily.
Wow.
It's a low number. Then we've had stuff happen. We've had about 9 people have seen one with me. Well, not with me, but we were all up there together. There was 10 or 15 people, and somebody go out and see one. Me and Stacy Brown, the guy that won the Bigfoot bounty, $10 million Bigfoot bounty, which he's a great guy at times. Me and him were walking down a road. We done a Bigfoot expedition in September of 2014. And we were walking down the dirt road, and we started seeing bear after bear after bear. We saw 13 bears in about a 45-minute period, which is unbelievable because, I mean, you might see one in the weekend, and that's a good weekend. But for normal circumstances up there. But we saw 13 bears in just, let's say, a half mile, maybe a mile walk down this dirt road. So we knew we were experiencing something different. We're like, fuck, there's something going down here. Like there was the right feed line, there was the right whatever. Then we came right around this corner, and one crossed the road in front of us, and we both saw it, maybe only 100 feet away at sunset.
You saw it clearly?
Clearly, yeah. Like, no doubt about it. Like, we looked at each other. We were like, what just happened? This thing runs across the road. It's a dirt road, right about sunset, and takes off. We're both freaked out about the whole thing. We stay up all night talking about it, because we didn't want to go. We saw where it went, but we didn't want to go in that direction because it was just, that's crazy. And so the next morning we got up at first light, and we followed the tracks out there. There was tracks. We made a video of it. You could see all these big tracks. Like, it would have been hard to fake, I guess. And they led us to a cave. That led us to another cave. It led us to a cave system that was carved into these mountains that were old. The miners used to use them, I guess. This was an area where they used to gold mine. They'd gold mine into these mountains and tunnel through one side of the mountain to the other, big tunnels, like miles long. And it led us to one of these areas where there's all these gold miners at, where there was people that used to live in these inside the mountains, kind of in caves, which I could have never in a million years found if this thing didn't run in this particular direction. We followed the direction and got through some nasty country, and then it led to some caves. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. But over the course of these return trips of 150 or 200 trips or whatever, I think 8 or 9 individuals on either during the daytime, during night, during thermal, or in some way experience something that was significant. I mean, that's a lot of people to bring into a circle and hope that something happens. But at the same time, most of those people had also been up there like 50 times. They'd been coming up for a year or whatever, and all of a sudden one day they lucked out and something happened. But my opinion on it, I think I got a good area. I stumbled upon it, and I just, they don't live everywhere. I mean, probably not anyways, but they happen to be in this area, and there happens to be, they like to return to this area in July or August for the food source, the deer, the berries. There's tons of berries in there. That's why we see so many berries, because there's berries everywhere, but they only come in every couple of years, and this year's going to be a good year because we got a lot of snow. But I think I got the right area, and I frequent the area, and then occasionally something will happen. Eventually we'll get better proof. Bart's thermal footage was, I mean, it was okay. It was good. That's on YouTube if anybody's listening, but you can go in there and type in like Bart Catino thermal footage. It's something that's bipedal. It's something that is a person or a Bigfoot. Everybody's going to come to that conclusion. It's blurry. It's at night. It's a night vision. But there was nobody else out there. I mean, it's just where we go, you ain't going to see nobody. It's not like in California, there's always a freeway or whatever 10 miles away. But there's a lot of very, very unexplored areas where you just, if you break down, you're going to have a problem. You're not going to see another person.
Well, let me ask you this, Justin. I'm sure you've learned a thing or two about them, at least in theory, you know, especially being a hunter, you know, and let's just assume they're flesh and blood, very elusive,
definitely
strong, intelligent creatures. Okay. How are you going to deal with that, man? That's a tough thing to do in their territory, don't you think?
Well, it's just like I always bring up the lions thing, because like I think about lions all the time. I said, so in California we got like 10,000 lions. It's a big place,
right?
But most people never see a lion, and so to see something that there might be 100 of in California or so, it's just unrealistic. You're never going to see them. I mean, just mathematically, there's just too many trees and too many rocks and bushes. And they're already elusive enough. You're just not going to see them. And I think we just get lucky, because I happened to stumble across the gold mine of Bigfooting one day when my incident happened. And then since then, we've always kind of hung out right in that same area, and every once in a while something happens. I do think they're just flesh and blood, just kind of like an ape, or they're like a turkey. You know, turkeys are dumb as shit, but they're scared of their own shadow, so they appear to be pretty smart and pretty much can live a long time in most atmospheres. So they're really elusive like lions. Maybe they're scared of their own shadow. Maybe they're just smart. I mean, I've heard everything back in the 60s, which terrible theory back in the 60s. The smallpox and the Indians, you know, people in close quarters, they started getting real close, and the white man and this disease has started to kill off all these Indians. And maybe the Sasquatches were there and they watched it happen. And they're like, you know what, those white people, you get closer and you get sick and die. I mean, you know, I'm sure it wasn't quite. There's a lot of theories about why they might avoid us, but, you know, for me, for example, they maybe tried to shoot them. So I could see why they would avoid people in general.
Yes. But even if you had one around you and you knew there was one around you, how do you deal with it then? That's what I'm curious about.
Hopefully take a picture. But I don't, for the most part, I mean, I really think that they're safe. They're safe enough. Like, people like to go out and like make calls and knocks and whatever. I don't think Bigfoots are out, like the missing 411 book or whatever. I don't think they're out kidnapping campers all the time. I'm sure it happens though.
Me too.
But I don't think it happens every day. but people disappear all the time. If 1% of it is from a Bigfoot, that's still an alarming rate.
Right.
Yeah. It's
That's
just,
pretty much what we feel also.
yeah, it's just tough, man. And Ernie and I have conversations all the time because we're armed men. We're armed when we're in the woods, and
Yeah.
conversations about what do we do if we're attacked? What, just we're theorizing. We're not planning. We're just theorizing. And what would it take? What caliber? How many of those bullets?
Right.
That,
Well, I
that
shot
kind of
mine with
thing.
a 25-06, which is like a decent or average deer rifle. And the
Mhm.
thing fell down, got back up, and started running like nothing ever happened. Like I shot it with a 22. It acted like a deer that was shot with a 22 in like the
Really?
gut. I mean, it took it, and then it was going to take off, and it was going to take more of it. So after that, I did think the second shot would have killed it, but I was too distracted by the young ones. So I saw the big one, and I shot that, but it really didn't seem to phase it that much.
Right.
And since then, I've had literally, this is probably one of the more interesting things. So went and did a couple of Bigfoot shows where I talk about whatever happened. Then they'd air on whatever channel they were on. And then that weekend, I'd get a bunch of people on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever that would add me as a friend and send me a message. A lot of it was really hateful shit, whatever.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But a lot of it was really interesting stuff of hunters that said, I mean, we're not talking about 1, 2, or 5 people. We're talking about like perhaps 25 people over the course of 2 years as I did TV shows that would contact me and say, I've never told anyone this before, but I shot a Bigfoot in Santa Rosa, California. Or one guy told me in Fresno, California by Shaver Lake. Other people, even in California and Washington, about 25 or so people told me that they had shot one. And different things happen, one thing or another, but most of them said they shot it in the shoulder with a 30-06. I mean, I'm just summarizing most of these stories, but shot it in the shoulder with a 30-06 and it ran off like nothing ever happened. I mean, but most average story, believe it or not, I swear to God, this is true. The most average story that I heard was a hunter in the woods that had been hunting for 10 or 15 years during the middle of deer season, and he'd look up and see one just staring at him 30, 40 feet away, 30, 40 yards, whatever, close, too close for comfort. They'd pull up the rifle and look at it, and they would do some sort of hand gesture and say something that appeared to be in some sort of an Indian dialect. And then they walked away. I didn't hear that once or twice. I heard it quite a few times.
Really?
And I was like, okay, well, yeah, what do you do with that?
Right. Right.
I've had time to think about it, and I got nothing. Just like, we're not talking about one person. Again, these people told the same fucking story. I mean, to a T. Where they're like, hey, I was out in the woods, blah, 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 this and that. And then it appeared to say something. They all said the same thing. Appeared to say something. Sound like it was in Indian or whatever. Then just turned around and walked away. And they were so confused by the whole thing, from the hand gesture to the speaking in some sort of language, that they never even thought to shoot or anything. They just watched it walk away.
Right.
And that was how it ended for all of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, mostly.
I take those stories as fact, I guess, only because of the way that I heard them, and because there were so many of them that were similar. Because these people, no, I never repeated it. I never told this story to anybody. They were just saying, "Hey, this happened to me too," and I had a lot of people that would tell me that.
They're credible, experienced outdoorsmen, and they are not seeking publicity when they tell you these things, and that adds to their credibility.
Well, yeah, they're all saying, "Hey, please don't tell anybody."
Right.
But one time I experienced this really crazy thing. And then since then, I've known that this is real, but I just go on with it and act like it didn't happen. I'm like, yeah, I get that.
Well, there seems to be a common theme in people who are armed not wanting to shoot them because they just don't want to start the fight. Basically, they see how big these things are, and they're like, I'm not sure I could drop it before it could, get to me, basically.
Well, that's what I always thought. So I went back into the woods many times without a firearm, just based on the fact that if they want to get you, they're going to get you. That's why I think they seem to be so safe, because so I try not to go in the woods unarmed, but occasionally I'd be with people. Like I went with this British film crew from the Channel 4 or BBC or something like that, and they were all afraid of firearms. They had never seen a firearm before. Middle-aged men, because it's all illegal or whatever out there. We're too crazy. The U.S. are rednecks or some shit.
Yeah.
But I've been out there many times without a firearm, and I thought, you know what? If they wanted to get me, a little rifle ain't gonna help. I ain't gonna be loaded and shoot. You know, you'd have to have your finger on the trigger and just walk around paranoid.
Well, what do you
So I'm comprehend.
what do you think? What do you think would take to drop one, Justin? Like some kind of customized
Well,
caliber?
it's still a flesh and blood animal. They're still, they're not that large. I mean, the one I shot, for a while I said it was 600 pounds. Then I saw one day in Los Angeles, I saw Shaquille O'Neal, basketball player, and I thought, no, he was that big. He was that big. How big is that guy? And at the time, he weighed 375 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is that all? Because he looked the same freaking size.
Right.
So then I wondered, okay, let's say maybe they're closer to 400 or 500 pounds. Okay, that's still a big animal.
Oh yeah.
It was the same size too. I always said it was about 7.5 feet tall, and I guess that's what he is too. But maybe most basketball players are that size. So, right shot would kill them, just like anything else. I mean, you'd have to get a headshot. You'd have to get something really in the vitals. 25-06 in the side. It's not that. I mean, a deer can run 100 or 200 yards, and a bear can do the same thing. Just get away or get in the bush. So this thing, I mean, the little one, I mean, it killed it better than shit. I mean, it bit. But the big one, a 30-06 in the shoulder probably isn't going to do it. You're going to have to get it real high in the chest. And it's going to have to be a 100-yard shot. I mean, I don't think they're supernatural or spiritual. I just think it would take the right shot placement.
Well, I'd like to interject real quick based on the stories that you've heard of people shooting them in the pantheon of Bigfoot reports going back in print at the, in the 1800s till now. It is a small percentage of Bigfoot reports where people have mentioned shooting them, but it is consistent. And in every case, well, almost every case, the alleged eyewitness describes exactly what happened to you and what you've heard, which is taking a fairly large caliber round and not seeming to be all that affected by it and taking off.
Yeah.
It's very consistent. It's very commonly mentioned. It's again, small percentage of the overall reports, but consistent throughout the decades, man.
Well, I always contend that if you shoot one, you may not drop it, but it's going to die because it can't seek any kind of medical attention that we know of, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could shoot it 5 times with a 22. It's death sentence right there from bleeding and infection. If not, then we're getting outside the known laws of physics, basically.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, you can kill him. It's just, in general, you shoot him in the shoulder with 30-06. I hear they're going to live, or for a little bit at least. But I'm sure infection will catch up to him shortly after.
Well, I am not I don't advocate being pro-kill myself, but I'm not no-kill. In other words, I don't care if a little old lady slams into one tomorrow and it makes the news and that's how the discovery winds up being public. That's fine with me. I want to know. I want to see it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would suggest, given what we know about the fossil record, the fossil apes, living apes, and the bone structures and the muscle that is supposedly on these Sasquatch creatures that are described, I would suggest if somebody feels like they're about to be attacked, I'd try to shoot one in the guts. I wouldn't worry about a bullet or a projectile glancing off a giant big ass rib bone or sternum. I think I would just try to blow it out, blow its guts out, try to aim below the rib cage so that it's probably going to take out its will to fight. It's certainly a mortal wound, whether it drops it right there or not. But I just thought I'd toss that out. I mean, what's your take on that? If it's purely for self-defense.
I don't know. I mean, a shot in the air is probably a good place to start if it's purely for self-defense.
Well,
probably going to startle them, but they've heard gunshots before. I mean, I'm under the impression that they follow hunters. Maybe not follow them, but kind of to keep an eye on them. And every time they make a kill, I had some weird experiences where we would shoot these deer because I'm a hunter. I remained hunting in the same exact area where this happened. And actually, since this happened, I would only deer hunt in this area. because I wanted to put myself in this area as much as possible. So I had to drive to go deer hunting, but I said, you know what, if I only do it at the kill site, eventually something will happen related to Sasquatch, and then I kill 2 birds with one stone, and I'll have that encounter, whatever that encounter leads to. So over the course of 5 deer seasons, literally about 12 to 15 times we shot deer that I felt like were dead. Deer that were dead, you know. And one of them walked over, we kicked it or whatever. We didn't kick it, but you walk over, you look, it's dead. We're like, all right, cool, let's go to the truck. Let's get our backpacks, and we're going to pack this thing out. We get to the truck, and we hear what sounds like 6 rocks being banged together. But it was so loud. I mean, it would have taken a lot of force to bang these rocks together. We came back, and there was just a big blood trail leading away from the deer. And it certainly appeared that something split this thing open with a rock, then dragged it off. I didn't experience something like this once. You experienced it like 15 times. And we're like, shit, there's something happening to these animals when you shoot them. Now, I don't think every hunter that goes out and shoots an animal, like a Bigfoot's carrying away. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that this is what we experienced in this particular area that we believe to be a hot zone for this activity.
That is just as commonly purported, again, in a smaller percentage of overall reports, but it's very common, man. Historically speaking, lots of deer hunters have had that experience, either seen the Sasquatch taking the kill or had the kill disappear under similar, mysterious circumstances.
Yeah, I can only tell you what I've experienced. I mean, I try to take everything everybody says with a grain of salt, because you figure out there are a bunch of crazies in the Bigfoot thing, but there's a lot of truth and consistency that you'll see once you start reading through the reports and talking to everybody. Well, and it seems like we're getting closer. Well, it seems like there's some people out there that are getting close to trying to be able to prove this thing.
Well, let me ask you this, Justin. In that moment that you had in your encounter, and you saw that thing in your scope, and you made the determination that this thing is a monster. Like you cycled through all the possibilities real quick in your head. Are they shooting a movie? Blah, 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 and you finally settled on, nope, that's a monster.
Yeah.
How do you think the rest of the nation would feel if they woke up to that realization tomorrow?
I think they do the same thing, fight or flight. I mean, people want to take the moral ground and be like, oh, these things are maybe beautiful animals that like love us or some shit. Let's not take it that far. Like, there's some animal out there, we have to prove it exists. We don't need to be worried about his feelings before then.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know the best way to prove this thing. I'm not sure. All these people that have these encounters, I mean, to me, start with trying to take a picture, I guess.
Yeah, but you know how that is, dude.
I give all this advice and you can say all these things, but in the heat of the moment, it's not like you can't be, at least for me, I wasn't prepared for it. And so, like, even with the one that crossed the road in front of me and Stacy Brown, you can't plan for it, and you're going to make all the wrong decisions when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. Or at least I did. It seems like, just like everybody says, like the batteries will die to your camera, you'll have all this weird stuff happen when you go bigfooting. It's kind of like what I experienced. Just I'm always one step behind them, and they're always one step ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's because of the shock. I mean, human nature and not dealing with these things as a known animal, People are not going to pull out their phones and take a picture of something that is blowing their mind and sending them into places they've never been before in their head. Right?
It's like
it's amazing.
Seeing a car wreck that's about to happen.
It's amazing.
Grab your phone, you're going to be locked in on it with your eyes.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Exactly.
It's amazing you even shot the one you shot. Like, and I don't say that in an ethical way. I'm just saying that for you to overcome your disbelief in that moment and just go, this thing doesn't belong here. I'm going to squeeze the trigger. That's amazing. That never happens, obviously.
Well, rarely.
Or rarely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's something that, again, I would like to cite, those initial interviews, which are still on YouTube for anyone who wants to hear what I believe is one of the most compelling Bigfoot encounters told by the two men themselves. Again, an encounter that involved two people who experienced the same thing. the artwork about the juveniles again, we're glad we were able to work with you on that, because there haven't been that many renderings of juveniles based on eyewitness reports. Excuse me. And we will have those drawings, all of those drawings, up on our Facebook page pretty soon. And hopefully people who are interested in this, who did not know the full story, it's fascinating. If you want to find those videos we mentioned, the one from January 2012, and then the one from November of 2012. And then, of course, the documentary. Isn't it called Dead Bigfoot, the one that Roe made?
That's what I encourage everybody to watch. Hey, if you're really interested in hearing my story or looking into it, you can fast forward through everything. The drawing's great because it's really interesting to see what I thought. But go to go to YouTube and type in Dead Bigfoot. It's a 1-hour documentary that me and a friend of mine did that I met during this Hiroshima. Sorry, my son's being loud. It's a 1-hour documentary on YouTube. It tells my story from me. There's a bunch of other TV shows and documentaries that I've done that I didn't have any control over. People edited it. They threw in their version of the story. Every single show I ever did, they had a little tidbit in there that was like not exactly the way that I said it in context. Right. Which just happens with TV, and they got to make it sensational and more interesting. Okay, whatever. But if you want to hear it from me, go to YouTube, look at Dead Bigfoot. There's a 1-hour documentary. It shows the driver. It talks to him. It's the story from us, the way it happened. I hope that in the future there will be Dead Bigfoot 2 or something along that line. But for
with
now,
a body.
That's the only accurate rendering of my story.
And Justin, you took in Dead Bigfoot, the documentary, part of the documentary is your polygraph test being filmed, and of course you passed the polygraph very famously. And didn't you say to me, I think in the past at some point, did you take subsequent polygraph tests after that one?
Oh, I took 3 different polygraph tests by 3 different polygraphers, I guess they're called. 3 different situations, 3 different people set up for me, and they said, "Hey, would you take a polygraph if I paid for you to take one?"
Right.
Then took 3 of them. I passed all 3 of them with flying colors. One of them is filmed. Most of it's on the documentary Dead Bigfoot on YouTube.
Right.
But the short of it is,
they surprised you with that one, right?
Yeah. That one, they were supposed to be going to my house to do whatever. They said, "Oh, we're gonna come and film something," and blah blah blah. And they showed up with the polygraph guy, and they said, "Cool, you said you take it. You ready now?"
Yeah.
Said, sure, I guess. And they thought they really got me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sat there and we filmed it. And then by the end, the polygraph was like, "Well, I don't know if I believe in Bigfoot, but I believe Justin believes in Bigfoot. I believe Justin saw something. I believe something happened to Justin." That was kind of like all of their way of summarizing it. They're like, "Well, Justin believes what he's saying." Like, well,
right.
I can't be mistaken.
Yeah.
There was 2 of us there. There's no scenario where I'm mistaken about this. So if I believe that this happened, then it happened. But that was always their kind of cop out. Well, Justin believes that this happened.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine that you misinterpreted what you saw.
Along with another person.
Exactly.
Along with the driver. Yeah. Let me ask you about the juveniles real quick. How do they walk, Justin?
For the most part, these things were walking on. They spent just as much time on all 4s, walking like dogs or whatever, as they did when they would stop. It was like they were learning to walk. It was like they were so young that they were learning to walk.
Really?
So they'd stop and they'd stand up immediately. Then they'd take a couple steps, and then they'd fall back down to all 4s. They were way more comfortable on all 4s.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like they were just learning to walk at the time. But
Wow.
I mean, these were probably 35 pounds. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be when a toddler learns to walk. It would have been way before this. These things were coordinated. They'd been eating and living in the wild for a while, you could assume, I guess, from what I saw. But I'm under the impression that they were probably with their adult father, it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this thing looked like a male. I didn't see boobs. I just knew it was a male the whole time. and maybe I just didn't give it any thought.
Right.
And then when I saw the little ones, and it was always the assumption that it was a mom, but that's not what I saw. That's probably not what I saw, I guess. I mean, I could have missed it, but it certainly appeared to be an old man that was there.
Yeah.
The assassin.
There are.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, Bigfoot boobs evidently are pretty big. So you probably would have.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to interject.
Well, yeah, I know what the chest looked like of this one, and it looked nothing like any of the others, so that's what I base it on. And it just looked like an old man, and it looked like a person in the face.
Ah, really? People say that,
well, I mean,
and I just can't wrap my head around it. It looked like a person in the face.
Just like that one renderings of the adult is fairly accurate, I feel like, in the sense that it looks like you can tell it's a boy, you can tell it's a person, you can tell it's old.
Wow.
It's got a lot of years behind it. Maybe it's only 35 years old. I don't know. I hear a lot of people ask me about that. Like, how long is a Bigfoot? I don't think we should guess.
Right.
That's a guess.
But still, there was.
My impression was this thing was in the latter portion of his life.
But at the same time, there was something about it, either its size or its look outside of its face, that made you go, "This thing looks like a monster."
Oh yeah. No, this. First I was like, could this be a person? Could this? No. Could this be a joke? Like, could this be a person in a suit? Could this be a movie production? Could this be, Chewbacca? Could this be a Star Wars type of thing? What could make sense? And there just was nothing left besides this is a real breathing flesh animal.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's about that point. I was like, okay, so if that's the case, then we can shoot it, because this is a monster. This is not something that should be here in that sense. That's what I always said. It's like I looked at it, like, it shouldn't be here. Like, then we should shoot it, because you don't know what's going to happen next if you don't. And it's not good thinking, but it was just a moment of panic.
Well, you can't really make a judgment on it unless you two guys with y'all's life experience up to that point in that situation. You can't really make a judgment call on it outside of that. And that brings me, if you don't mind, and we don't want to keep you forever, but this is less of a technical chronological thing. I would just like to ask, when you, when you and your buddy drove the truck into the meadow, you're out of the truck, you're looking around, these two small are now in your midst. These 3 to 3.5 foot tall, hairy creatures that are not human, and you've never seen this stuff before. Could you just describe, not necessarily, we know what you've said the creatures look like, but what was the overall sense, the feeling that you had? I mean, I don't want to lead you. I don't want to lead your answer. Could you describe, any sort of major change in your world perspective at that moment? Can you just tell us, just as kind of a parting shot maybe for tonight, just what that was like?
At the time, it really just felt like a nightmare, in the sense my adrenaline was going crazy, I was excited and all that. But it felt like a nightmare, because it felt like something that, like, this isn't real, this can't be, this is too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was most of what was going on, is just wanting to get out of there, just wanting to step back into normal.
Yeah.
Because everything about this just seemed way too crazy. I mean, it's just complete panic. I mean, that moment you have a nightmare where the monsters are chasing you or whatever, it seems real for a second. Even though you're looking at these little tiny things, you're like, oh, it's only a matter of time. I mean, it's like looking at like little zombies or something. It's crazy. Like, to really see something like that, to see something like seeing a cartoon come to life, where you just can't explain why it's scary, but it just is, because it's not supposed to be real. And then it's changing reality. It's changing everything that you know.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, man. It's heavy stuff, folks. Heavy stuff, and it's compelling to me, I have to say.
And
I really wish that I could find some way to prove to everybody that I'm telling the truth or whatever.
I know you feel that way, dude.
I can do. I figured that, because I used to talk to people and get to know them, and you spend like a year basically talking to somebody online and all that. That's cool. And at the end, they're like, "Wow, cool, I believe you." because like I got to know you and your family stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like we kind of part ways or whatever, because it's like, well, okay, cool. Then now you know. And it takes a long time to get to know somebody, and then to try to judge somebody and try to figure out could they be mistaken? Could you be wrong? I mean, and no, I couldn't be. But
No.
there's nothing that I can do to show people that I'm telling the truth definitively.
No.
There just isn't. I hope and pray that someday I discover something. That's why I was always down for the polygraphs. Because like, yeah, I'll take as many as you want. If I can somehow show you that I'm most likely there's some form of credibility to this, then I'll do it every time. And if somebody else thinks of something, then yeah, I'm fine with that too. I'll still take another polygraph. But
right. I mean, the only other thing, dude, and I'll put you on the polygraph spot right now. I'm gonna put you on my polygraph. Is were you on any kind of psychedelics or psychotropic?
No, nothing like. So at the time, I was 24 years old, raised in a Christian home. I never smoked marijuana, even like weed. I never did drugs. Still have never tried drugs. I might someday, but probably not. If I've gone this long, I'm probably not going to get into it.
Yeah, don't do it, man.
I've never done meth, heroin, mushrooms, whatever, nothing like that. I occasionally drink beer, but even that doesn't, it's not an every week type of thing.
Beer does not make you hallucinate, dude. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, at the time,
yeah,
I had never tried any mind-altering drugs. And neither had, my buddy had, but he not at that very moment.
Right.
There was nothing going on that could have made us come to such an outrageous conclusion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was an average day. It was a normal. Everything was good. This was like such a routine hunting trip. This was like a guy that I had hunted with perhaps 50 times. We had done the same type of a trip. This was just another day, and then it turned it crazy.
Well, that's what Pat and I love so much about the first interview before the documentary came out. When Roe did the first video interview with you, an hour long of y'all sitting at the table there, you detail the entire day, the mundane events of the drive up, and the people that were saying you were on the bike path and all that business.
Yeah, it was all kinds of that.
It's unfortunate that one interview, the first videotaped interview in its entirety, isn't up anymore on YouTube, but like we were saying, the juiciest bits, the most important bits of you and your buddy's story are on camera in that documentary. And well, it's been an absolutely fascinating interview, and we really appreciate your time, man.
No problem. I think the world of both of you guys. I mean, you guys. So for the listeners, you guys contacted me and you're like, hey, we just want to help you out and try to like put your experience to some paper and try to give you like a picture of or to give you a picture to show people. And the artist rendering into the juvenile, I mean, it's the best one that there is out there. I don't think there's anything that even touches it that I've seen, at least. Especially for my personal experience, 100% it was the best that there is. But even everything else, there's not really a better picture out there than the stuff that you guys have done. I appreciate you guys a lot. I think the world of you guys. And we all want the same thing: discovery at any cost, but hopefully a very little cost.
Yeah.
Thank you for the kind. Trust me, Pat and I hope that if there is one guy that winds up being the guy, we would certainly hope that it is you, man. We would love for there.
That's the thing. I know a lot of people want to be that guy. I'm so impartial to it because I'm just like, I don't care if it's an old lady that hits one with a truck, like you say.
Yeah.
God bless her. Just bring that body in and prove it so that we can move on. To me, it's like almost an irritating. I want to move on. I want to be like, all right, guys, this really fucking happened. Prove it. Okay, done. And then I can move on to something. Like, that's how I feel about it because I've been stuck on this whole, well, I need to show people that I'm telling the truth. And then I found out there's no way to do that. And I kind of got bored with it. It was just like, all right, well, I'll just Bigfoot in private till I find better proof. That's kind of the idea. I'm going to just keep doing my thing. I mean, this year I know we're going to, this year I'm hopeful because we got so much snow that we're going to have good activity. We have stuff happen about every other year. We're going to keep going and something's going to happen. But I hope that we get good proof or a good, I'll settle for a good picture.
Yeah. Well, Justin, I'm going to have to tell you, man, that we have a plan for that. And I know people say that, right? But we actually have a good plan. And, it's gonna. I mean, we're gonna try and execute it in the fall, maybe winter, and just letting you know, man, that we're we are actively trying to capture good footage of these things in a way that makes sense. And you know,
always talk about, in the future also, just between us as far as exchanging ideas. But trust me, I hope every day is going to be the day when the news is all over the world, and there's right there on CNN, there's a body. I really want an answer to the mystery. And but anyway, like I said, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us a chance to kind of set the record straight about a few things that matter to us, because we think that you and your buddy's story is incredibly compelling and sheds a lot of light on this whole really.
Yeah, man. And hey, if you ever find yourself on the East Coast, man, come to North Georgia. We have a wonderful habitat for Sasquatch here. Just so you know.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'd love to go to Georgia.
Yeah, Ernie's the mayor of Sasquatchville over there. He's surrounded by at least 11 encounters. Not him personally, but 11 BFRO encounters over the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they are definitely there, and we've had our own like interactions with them, but never seen one.
Yeah, it seems to be all about location. The people that get action, they continue to get action in the same spot, and the people that don't just continue to not get action and float around in different spots. Seems like.
Yeah, and I think there's a seasonal aspect to it.
Yeah. For us, the only time that we seem to see them is, for us, we literally go up there and find tracks. I mean, I don't like to tell people like it's like such a normal thing, but I mean, like you find deer tracks in the woods, we go to the summer, we might find tracks 2 or 3 different times, which probably doesn't sound that crazy when you plan on going 8 different weekends.
Sure.
But 2 or 3 different times we usually find tracks. And then we establish, hey, they're here. Why are they here? And it seems like to be the same handful of stuff where it's like when the deer show up in big numbers, when the berries really come in, they seem to be active. When there's not a lot going on, there's not a lot of rodents, and there's not a lot of owls or whatever in the area or small game, we don't seem to see them at all.
Where do you think they go in February?
I don't know anymore. I developed a lot of theories about them. So we found tracks in the snow one time and about 50 trips in the snow. And then based off that one encounter for about a year, I believed that they were just denning in there, and that's why we never found them, because it's such a desolate area in the winter. This area in the winter, I mean, there'll be 10 square miles where a person will not go. A huge area. There's too much snow. The way that the mountains are formed up there, the whole north side. I mean, there's 15 to 17 feet of snow right now up there. I mean, you can't live up there. You can't do anything up there. So what do they do all winter? I don't know. I thought that maybe they den. And if they den like a bear, which a primate stomach usually wouldn't be adapted to, if they did that, then it would be very easy for them to get food, because all they'd have to do is grab a bear out of its den. You know, the bears are hibernating up there too. So you grab a bear like once a month and pull it into your cave. It's all frozen anyways or whatever. You have to lay on it and just eat it. So I came up with this theory.
I like that theory.
Year after year, returning to the snow in the same area where we found tracks, we never saw tracks again. And so then I was just like, well, I know that they can winter up there. It's possible.
Right.
And the is definitely there, and so many bears up there. There's more bears up there. I mean, like I said, me and Stacey Brown saw 13 in one day. Most people just can't fathom it.
Right.
I don't know where they go. I have no idea. Maybe they just follow the deer. I really think they might be more simple, and they might use the coyotes. I see coyotes. I see owls. Yeah, I see a handful of things in the areas like when this all happens. I see owls. Owls only go where there's lots of rodents. I see coyotes. Coyotes also typically only go where there's lots of rodents. So it could be like they just follow the rodents. It could be simple, or I could be misthinking it, but the rodents are following the food. They're following the berries. So I don't know. You start to hypothesize, and you come up with a lot of different theories. But my main one is that they follow the deer, migrate with the deer, and that the coyotes are their dogs, more or less. Because they all seem to be together when you see them. We'll see like 250 deer in a night. When this is my migratory area for the mule deer up there, and there's a bunch of deer moving through when there's a bunch of deer. then all of a sudden we might have some activity or see some tracks.
Yeah.
So based on that, we decided that they follow the deer. I think they follow the deer, and the coyotes like kind of keep the deer at bay, just like a hound and its houndsman and its hound, like hunting anything.
That's a very widely accepted theory. Both the deer is part the main staple of their diet, and also the association with coyotes.
Yeah, it just seemed like I saw something one time where I saw a bunch of deer moving into a meadow, like 50 or 60 of them, and there was a coyote moving around them. And then I heard something that I thought was perhaps a Bigfoot, but I was maybe stretching or looking. I was looking for Bigfoot in the area, so I had Bigfoot on my brain. But it certainly seemed like that was what was happening this one time, because there just seems to be a correlation. But with the owls, there seems to be a huge correlation. Every time we've ever had activity, we've had owls up there, and owls are always the exception. They're not always there. But that just meant that the food was there, really. It could have meant any number of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's almost simple logic. Follow the game. I mean, it's a
follow the food.
big thing, right? It needs food.
It's been a long-standing theory that they could be subterranean in to varying degrees. When it's necessary, when it's opportunistic, when there are cave systems that they can access. So back to snow tracks. Typically in track finds, finding tracks in snow is usually the least type of substrate. It's rare to find Sasquatch tracks in snow. They're almost always reported just in when there is no snow. But you're right. It does suggest that they can definitely winter in certain areas, and they can definitely hunt if they have to during winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. If you're ever on the East Coast, man, you're more than welcome to come to North Georgia and check out the terrain and how things.
We don't even have bears hibernating here for real.
Yeah, they don't hibernate. No.
Yeah, they stay pretty much active all year round.
That's what our coastal bears do. I live 2 hours from the ocean. Then I live 2 hours from 10,000 feet in the Sierra Tahoe National Forest.
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of it all. California's we got nice. It's not a bad place to live.
Are you there, Justin?
But besides somebody called me. I guess phone calls go straight over this. I just ignored the phone call. Not sure where we were at.
It's okay.
Oh, no worries, man. In fact, we can just wrap it up. I don't want to lose too much steam here. We really appreciate you coming on, man. Really do. And I'm glad to know that you're, despite everything, that you're still very dedicated and interested in, research, seeing what else you can find out there. More power to you, man.
Yeah, I got to answer for myself, too. I mean, I have a huge personal interest in this. And I want to see this through, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just kind of cool to be out there and to be doing something not everybody else is doing, and hoping to find some answers to something that most people would never even believe exists at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, amen, man.
Yeah, dude. We'll keep in touch with you and let you know what we got going on. Like I said, there's a mission happening with footage, so we'll see.
Yeah, you guys could always come down to California too. I mean, our window of opportunity is pretty small, so which means you really have a decent chance at seeing something or hearing something or having an encounter, because almost all of our stuff happens in August. I mean, It just seems like that's a hot month for everything. And up there, it's nice. You're in the hills. It's 70 degrees every day. It's not a bad place to be.
We'd love to take you up on that one of these days. We would.
Oh yeah, I'd just love to be in that part of the country. I mean, forget Bigfoot. Forget Bigfoot. I'd love to be in the Sierra Nevadas, man. It would be fantastic.
You'll be getting a call. Yeah, Justin, you'll be getting a call from us one of these days. We will call that in. Trust me.
Yeah.
Listen, man, thanks again for coming on, Justin. And we really appreciate it. It's been very informative. And it's good talking to you again.
All right. You guys take care.
All right. Thanks, man.
Take care, bud.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks.